Oh God, how I need you. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul. Worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul. Worship Your holy name. The sun comes up. It's a new day dawning. It's time to sing your song again. Whatever may pass and whatever lies before me, let me be singing when the evening comes. Bless the Lord, oh my soul. Strength is failing, the end draws near, and my time has come. Still my soul will sing your praise unending. 10,000 years and then forevermore. Bless the Lord, oh my soul.
Well, hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us. Here we are, Palm Sunday of the Lord's Passion. What an awesome day for us, the beginning of Holy Week. It's good to be with you. Thank you for joining us, and I hope you feel free to participate and ask questions in any way you wish. Hopefully, some of the things we'll talk about will spur up some questions for all of you. So let's pray as we begin. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Heavenly Father, we ask your blessing upon us as we begin this hour. Bless us as we try to sink ever more deeply into the great mystery of the Holy 3 Days. I know that people watching us will have questions that maybe we don't cover, so hopefully we'll be able to, along with questions, along with the things we are prepared to talk about here tonight, that we will get more deeply involved in this great mystery, which is the greatest event in the universe. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. So, Marty, what do you think?
All right, Father, we are going to talk about what arguably is the most important week of the year for Christians. Holy Week, we know it. We do it every year.
Yep.
And we point towards it. It's like, at the top of the chart for us as Christians. But why is it so important? Along the line of, why do we only do this once a year?
Because of the liturgical cycle, I think.
I understand, but you know what I'm saying? We put so much into this.
You only do that once a year, I think. I mean,
you think it would be difficult to do it?
Oh, yeah.
Well, all right, but as Catholics, as Christians, why is this week so important?
And just given what you just said, now just thinking about it, we spend 6 weeks of immediate preparation. We have 7 weeks afterwards. We try to unpack it.
Right.
So it becomes that important. I don't think this is the most important week for Christians. I think it's the most important week for the universe and for all people. Because, folks, I really believe, and I'm not trying to be pedestrian or parochial by saying this either, but I really believe that when we die, we're going to meet Jesus. And I think the Muslims are going to meet Jesus. I think the Buddhists are going to meet Jesus. And I think the Hindus are going to meet Jesus. Everybody else is. So I really think, and by the way, I really think that Jesus is even more universal than Christianity.
Well, when I said most important week for Christianity, it's because I hate to use the word celebrate, but we mark this week.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people that this is just another week, just like Easter is just another Easter is the Easter bunny and eggs. And you know what I'm saying? So I pointed towards Christians. I agree with you, though. Can
I say something really odd? I was talking to somebody
it's
who
your
would
program.
know.
You
I
can
know.
Say what you want.
Well, this is really going to shock a bunch of people. And someone said to me not too long ago, and I just wanted to nod my head. This person involved in the whole world of prostitution said to me that the most important times for this world, the most lucrative, are Easter and Christmas.
For that business?
For that business.
Well, Christmas, I understand.
Since it's very secular, too.
I mean, Christmas is a celebratory, and Easter is celebratory, but Holy Week isn't. Was that the indication that Holy Week is also?
I don't know, maybe the evil one, by the way, I think if there's anywhere I see evil personified, it's in that world. But I thought it was strange. And someone said that to me. I went, really? I didn't know what else to say about that.
Do you think that the average, and I'll narrow it, average Catholic understands this week, or just says, oh yeah, we got to listen to the Passion. If we we're going to hear that a couple times. It's the longest gospel that we hear throughout the year. But do you think most Catholics get it, or is it just, I got to go to church? I mean, do they take in all that it gives out?
The evangelized ones get it.
So it's a smaller percentage.
I would say so, yes.
The average Catholic, it's just like, holy smokes, I got to go to church 3 times this week.
I blame people like me for that.
Why?
Because we're not evangelizing people. We're I don't know what we're giving them, but we're certainly not giving them what they need to be able to really fully participate in all of this. And they think I think it's what you said. Got to go to church 3 times, but then again, I'm not gonna go to church 3 times.
Yeah, you know what I mean. It's like
if church is something that's difficult for you, then that's a good sign.
Yeah, and I got to be honest. I haven't been to too many. Good Friday was throughout my adult life not necessarily a time that we went to church, because I don't know if it wasn't encouraged, but Holy Thursday and the Easter Vigil for about the last, boy, I don't know, 30, 35 years.
Yeah, good, good.
Because they're unique. They are two of the most special is such a cheap word, it really, but they're so significant, right?
Yeah.
And I know you talk a lot about the Holy 3 days. You know, if you put everything aside, and I've always thought, and I don't disagree with you, and this will be the first year, and I told you not to mention it, but so I'll mention it, but I'm not going to, because of my new job, I'm not going to be able to participate. But, you know, I never thought of it as 3 days, okay? I always thought of it growing up as, well, one for sure, and maybe another one if I have the opportunity. But, that was Holy Thursday, and either Easter or the Vigil. Like I said, Vigil for the left, but when I was a kid, it was Easter. You know, of course,
Because when the kid, there was no Easter Vigil.
is that?
There really?
So when did we start
you
doing
know
that?
You know when it was celebrated? 10 o'clock on Saturday morning when no one was there. And that's one of the great things is the Holy 3 days, as you and I know it, really was a reform of the Vatican Council, because
All right, I didn't
Holy
think of that.
Thursday, we cranked that out. Good Friday, if you remember, when I was a kid, there was 3 hours long, and we just did a bunch of stuff. And people were wandering in and out all the time. You do Stations of the Cross, you do a rosary, you venerate the cross, but there was no real liturgy for that. And so the Second Vatican Council reformed the liturgy so that we have Holy Thursday, Good Friday, Easter Vigil as one unique liturgy.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So we celebrated Palm Sunday, which is the beginning of the most consequential periods in the life of our faith. But how much of the story, because we talk about this in our, in religion, the world and science and all this other stuff. How much is this story of Christ's last day on earth can we verify as true? Yep, it happened just like we say it.
That's a really good question, and I think I'd like to share some things with that. I'm going to say, first of all, yes, it's true. But every single author, every single gospel writer has their own twist,
which
on
is
it.
probably why it gets that people aren't sure. How come you can't tell the same story, right?
Yeah, let me share a little bit with all that. For example, I just picked this up today. Did you pick up that it said Jesus was crucified with 2 other did it say 2? It said revolutionaries. Now, and that they were abusing him too. In Luke's gospel, we have
one is abusing him. One is saying, "Hey, shut up over there. Do you know who this is?"
Yeah.
So there's 2 different takes, right?
Let me give you another thing.
I think Luke's is the only one that says that.
Yeah. Now also, the only one that has Mary involved in all this is John.
Okay.
No one else has Mary and the cross. Now, this is Father Demetrius's book, which I think is one of the best biblical commentaries ever. But anyway. He writes, and it's a little bit long, but he writes.
Is this Demetrius Dunn?
Father Demetrius, yes.
Okay.
And this is his mystical portrait of Jesus, his commentary on John. John is in harmony with all the other evangelists when he notes the presence of faithful women near the cross, though Mark wishes to emphasize the isolation of Jesus, and it says that they were looking on from a distance. So there's a difference. Mark has everybody looking on from a distance, so Jesus isolated. Whereas John has Mary near the cross. By the way, it says she stands near the cross. This unnamed disciple was the founder of the disciple on the other side, Mary and John. This unnamed disciple was the founder of the Johannine community and the creator of the unique perspective of that community on the mission of Jesus. Neither he nor one of his disciples was the author of we don't know who the author of the 4th gospel is, but here's the point I want to share with you. John seems to see this intimate scene at the cross as a sign of how Jesus prepared for the future when he no longer be physically present with disciples. His mother will represent the church. And by the way, in John's gospel, highly symbolic. Everybody symbolizes something. Peter symbolizes something. The beloved disciple does. Mary does. Everybody to symbolize something. So his mother will then represent the church as the community that will give spiritual birth to subsequent generations of his followers. As such, She will assume the role of second Eve. Just as the first Eve was called the mother of the living, so Mary will become spiritual mother for all those who believe in her son. In this sense, she also aptly is called mother of the church. In similar manner, the beloved disciple represents all of us, the faithful Christians, just as the faithful followers of Jesus must henceforth look to the mother church for spiritual nourishment, for it is the church that makes available the sharing of divine life. So no one else mentions Mary or this beloved disciple at all. No one has this symbolic twist to it, but this is John's version. And I think he says here at one point, I may have missed the one sentence, where he says that, of course, these are all historical persons. Every single person, Mary is a historical person, beloved disciple is a historical person. So are these people crucified with Jesus, historical persons. But by and large, they are saying something that is fundamentally true. All of it's true.
All right, let's go. Let's start with Palm Sunday. And first of all, why do we carry palms? Now, the Jews called the palm tree a kingly tree, K-I-N-G-L-Y, because of its height and majestic appearance. But what's the significance of those branches? I mean, there are a lot of palm trees, right?
And if you read the gospel today in Matthew, which we did,
Right.
they didn't, it just says they got branches from trees. It didn't say palm
Right.
trees.
So how do we get to palm trees? What's the significance?
Yeah, I bet you palm trees weren't maybe even there too much.
That's what I was just about to ask you.
Yeah, and palm trees are beautiful trees. But anyway, in history, in tradition, waving palms is a sign of royalty or victory. Whenever the Jews would go in processions after and throughout history, they would carry palms. And Romans, whenever they come back from victory, from some kind of a battle or something into Rome, they would carry palms. So it wasn't historical that they carried palms in those days. It was more something that people did as a sign of royalty and victory. And so the gospel writers, they superimposed palms into that.
So
The
not
church did, the church did.
necessarily palms. but
Probably
just
not palms at all.
Yeah, because they probably didn't exist back. Which
Well, they
again,
did, but not in Jerusalem.
and see, this is why we
Not as much.
not we, but why sometimes our faith gets in trouble, because the people who are anti will say, "Well, what are you talking about? There were no palm trees in Jerusalem back at that time of So that
There may
if
have
that-
been.
but if that's not true, then none of this can be true. It's all made up.
That's
right? It's all made up.
that's a big jump.
But that's a lot of times that's what happens, right?
But that's the genius of the writers. They superimpose things that were part of history at those times. In the church, actually, the gospel writers didn't do it. The gospel writers are speaking more historically.
Right.
The church threw that in there later on because they saw palms as a sign of victory. And so therefore, we call it Palm Sunday.
All right, so it's Palm Sunday. By the accounts that we read and the stories that are told, we're led to believe that there were a lot of people, a large crowd watching Jesus come into Jerusalem. Well, why were they there? I mean, this wasn't like, here comes your
Passover.
your Super Bowl team is being honored. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is a parade, but no, it's not a parade. Okay, so it was Passover, but were they expecting to see what they saw?
No.
Did they have any idea what was going on?
No.
Or was Jesus just in the crowd on the donkey?
Oh, no. I think Jesus had a reputation by then. I mean, everybody knew him.
That would have brought many people?
No, I don't think he brought the people.
Okay.
Passover brought the people.
All right. So Passover, explain that. What were they doing?
Well, Passover, that's one of the big three.
I know that, but I mean,
holidays.
why would they have been on the streets that day?
Well, no, I
Or
think,
is it not on the streets?
Well,
I'm conjuring
yeah.
up the image that we have.
because I don't think, I don't think they had hotels much in those days.
No, I
So
don't think
people
so,
sort
not-
of camped out. And all of a sudden, here comes this great event of this Jesus coming into Jerusalem.
All right.
And I think people were kind of curious and stuff. They needed some little entertainment and stuff. So there they go. What's going on here? And all of a sudden, here he comes. And so the big crowd seems to form.
Okay. We're told that he rode in on a donkey. It's called something else, and a lot
A
of
colt.
or others, another not so nice word that that
Oh,
gets.
an ass,
I
yeah,
know that gets thrown around. Like,
Yeah.
what does that mean? But anyway, whatever he's riding, he's not in a limo. He's not riding on a majestic horse,
Right.
and there's a significance to that, isn't there?
I'll bet his feet dragged on the ground.
Because
as
they
he
were
did that.
small.
'Cause
Well, if he's
a
riding a
colt is
donkey or
smaller.
colt, they're not. Yeah, colt, they're not
Yeah,
that big.
yeah, they're
Didn't
but what was
Isaiah specifically say riding on an ass and a colt
The foil of an ass, a foil of an ass, a colt. Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
That was
My
the
point,
other
though,
day.
is why?
Well, I think he was not coming in as
Humility.
he was not coming in as a general or
Right.
a great political figure.
Do you think the people who were there that were watching this would have understood the symbolism, or is that something we had to figure out thousands of years later?
It's a good question. I don't know what was in their mind. Now, in the synoptics, if like I'm right, and folks, you can correct me. One of the synoptic, he goes right in and he goes into the temple and starts bashing away in the temple right after this. In another gospel, when it's all over, it's all done, everybody starts dispersing, he goes home. He just goes back to Bethany.
So it's presented, and as we come to think of it, that it's a special day, that this is the beginning of the last week of his life, and there's a lot of symbolism. There's, I don't want to call it majesty, but there's like an event happening.
Yes,
This isn't
yes,
just
yes,
a bunch
yes.
of people walking down a dirt road. There's something really happening, something special. Whether or not it is exactly as we interpret it, I don't know that's that important. Is that a fair?
I would say, yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of different interpretations of the whole thing, but it was a big event, and Jesus had finally come to Jerusalem for whatever awaited him. And as we all know, the chief priests,
So he would have not been in Jerusalem on a regular basis.
Now, that's interesting. Now,
Okay.
it depends on the gospel you read. In John's gospel, it seems like he's there quite often.
All right.
It goes back and forth. In Matthew, Mark, and Luke, half of the gospel is him making a journey to Jerusalem.
Right.
He does his thing in Galilee, and then after Galilee, all of a sudden, like in Luke's gospel, it says he set his face toward Jerusalem. Now, beginning chapter 9 in Luke's gospel, chapter 9, verse 51. I just have to remember this. Then the rest of the chapter until this day is him being on his way there. That's 10 chapters. Is him being on his way there.
The Mass today, and I didn't realize this until I was doing this research, it's the only time in our entire liturgical year that there are two Gospels. The
Yes,
one that
yeah.
you read as we were getting ready to process in, and then, of course, the Passion. Why?
Well, the official title for today is Palm Sunday of the Lord's Passion. So as you noticed, I think in some sense, you kind of notice that the beginning is I think our beginning was great. I think our opening song was awesome. You know, the King of Glory comes at with symbols and everything else. That was awesome. So it's really, really quite celebratory. Then all of a sudden, with the readings, boom, we come right back.
But
down.
why do we do that Gospel at the beginning? What's the point of that?
To be just
Is that
sort
like
of-
setting a scene?
Yeah, for us coming in. Now, actually, if you look at in the missal, there's three options for that beginning. Option one, which I've already done at a different parish before, is you would go someplace else, and you'd actually process. Imagine we began the liturgy, I don't know, let's say in the field over there by the playground.
Or we just started at Holy Grounds. Across the
Holy
street.
Ground, across
Yeah.
the street. And then we processed like that. That would be, and then we would sing it. You'll be singing.
Right.
Then the second version is how we did it. Then the third version I don't want to talk about because it's sort of bland and kind of boring. But there's all these different options. And then all of a sudden, once you get in there and we begin the liturgy of the word, all of a sudden things shift. Which actually happened in the Bible. Things shifted all of a sudden.
Jerry.
Linda added some scientific
you go.
documentation here about palm trees. There were palm trees in ancient Israel. Natural Medicine Research Center in Jerusalem has sprouted 6 new trees from the 2,000-year-old trees. Seeds of Judean date palms discovered at various archaeological sites. The trees were once grown in plantations around Jericho and the Dead Sea, the researchers explained. So I guess they had a lot of palm trees there.
Yeah, I'm sure like Jericho and places like that, they have zillions of them, you know?
There's also thing from, I don't know if it's your sister Susie or your brother Susie.
Yeah.
Maybe this is something for afterwards, but that in the creed after his death, Jesus descended into hell.
Oh, yeah, we
What
can
does
do
this
that.
mean? Should that be in 2 weeks, or do we?
We talk about that every Holy Saturday morning at morning prayer. We always talk about that. But we'll talk about it tonight. Marty can put a note in that.
Okay.
that one.
I-
Do it in order. I don't want to get us off the track.
Yeah, it's okay.
I can't imagine that there are many Christians who, or especially Catholics, but Christians who don't know the story of the persecution of Christ. I mean, it is,
Yeah.
I mean, it's something that is, we talk about, even if we don't directly talk about it, we talk about it all year round. We have crucifixes in churches and homes, and we know and all this. Well, if we already know it, and we basically know the sequence of events, why is it so important that we listen? And we didn't participate in the Passion before Vatican II, but why is that so important?
You got to hear the story over and over again. I think we forget stuff. I mean, how many times have we heard that story? And even just today, I was thinking, I didn't know there was two insurrectionists, revolutionaries that not contradicted, but had a different take than Luke's gospel. And to read, the Gospels are alive. They are living, breathing documents. And the scriptures are in a 3-year cycle. Next year we'll do Luke. The next year that we'll do Mark. We need to read these things over and over again. It's just part. If we read it once and we'll forget about it. We don't want to forget.
Do you
about
really
it.
think we'd forget about the story of his crucifixion?
We might remember it sentimentally, but not really know it.
Well, every year somebody's born, every year somebody comes of age. So we need to keep, like the Jews recounting the Passover.
Okay, so we
We
could
need
just
to keep doing that to
we
keep
we
telling.
we could just do this for the kids then, is what you're what you
No,
know.
I need
No,
to
it's
do
just-
it. I need to do it. Now,
I'm just wondering because it is such a
Yeah.
a told story, but we tell it all the time, and
And-
we
and
tell it
it's-
differently. That's the other thing. You mentioned it. I wasn't going there, but since you brought it up, depending on which gospel writer, it's not the same story.
but it's historically fundamentally true.
Okay.
But it's the same. But now they're saying it differently for their parishes and for their people they're talking to. But real quickly, I was looking. I thought of this. I was looking through your questions for today. I thought of this, and we see this. We say sorry. We go to the gospel. What about the people that anyway? The author was saying, Carey Nieuwhof, he was saying, make sure you tell people why. He doesn't say just tell the story, what your son is saying, I think.
Okay.
He says tell them why the story.
All right.
And why do you tell the story? And he goes on to say there's going to be a lot of people in your church over Easter, and he names 3 different kinds of persons that are there, that like the spiritual guy that says, nice story, but I have my own faith. I don't need this one. Or the cynical guy. Not important to me. My girlfriend made me come, for Easter. Then the sentimental guy. Nice story, made me cry, but completely unchanged. But at the same time, and what he goes on to say, Carey Nieuwhof does, tell them why this is so important, which I think you're trying to say to us
Right.
here.
That's what
I
I'm
hope I
going.
do that on Easter. I hope I do that a little bit.
I think you will.
We'll
I've heard
see.
you in the past. I think you've got that
Let me get
figured
it.
out.
Let
All
me
right.
try.
Now, we know about, this Palm Sunday is Jesus's entrance into Jerusalem. And I think one of the issues with all of this is that we think 2,000 years ago, he came in on Sunday, the Last Supper was Thursday, the Passion was Friday, he rose on the following Sunday. Those are days, but we're not talking about 7 or 8 days, are we?
I don't know.
But because there's no real relevant, there's no evidence that suggests it was, because if there was, that was my question, what was he doing on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday? What
Right,
was he doing
right,
during
right.
the time that he came in that he wasn't being persecuted? And is that important?
And in John's gospel, he's teaching at the temple. He's preaching at the temple.
So he then would have made it seem, even though he knew, but he would have made it seem like, okay, this is just another step in my ministry.
Oh, no. He knew what he was
No,
looking
he
at.
knew, but the disciples would have come with him. The people would have listened to them, because I'm thinking if they would have believed what was about to happen, they would have done everything they can to get him out of there, right?
And they did, but they failed. Like one time, you'll read it. I think it's tomorrow's gospel. Jesus says to them, we're going to go back to Jerusalem, or I think it's tomorrow's gospel. And Thomas says to him, are you crazy? They're trying to kill you. You can't go back there. And then somebody said that to him. Either maybe it's Peter. And then Thomas says, oh, let's go back, die with them, And so they were trying to talk him out of it.
So do you think it's fair to assume that he was there for a couple of days from his entrance until the night where they come to arrest him? Or I'm just, you said teaching in the temple. I've always wondered that. Like, what was he doing? First of all, why did he come if he knew he was going to die there? I always had a
That
problem.
was his mission.
I know that was his mission, but still, at some point, and he must have. Did he
And he heard that
tell?
today.
Did he tell his disciples? Did he tell the apostles what was about to happen?
Yeah,
And
over
they
and
just
over.
didn't believe him.
They didn't believe him. They did not believe him because they always saw him as a political figure. I think Judas primarily saw him as a political figure,
Right.
and that he was going to somehow politically free Israel from the Romans and reestablish the Davidic kingdom. I think they could hear nothing else, and especially in Mark's gospel, he told them over and over again. And
All
they
right.
get it.
Holy Week begins to reach its climax with what is called the Easter Triduum. You call it the 3 holy days. I got to be honest with you. Until you started, I'd never heard that before.
Oh, only 3 days.
No,
yeah.
it is, but
Yeah.
it was never really. When I was growing up, nobody talked about it being one continuous service,
Right,
right? That
right.
starts Holy Thursday and ends at the vigil,
Right.
or no vigil Easter Sunday, right?
No vigil.
But
That liturgy.
before the vigil, even the morning when you had that morning vigil, did it end then? Was that the end of it?
Who knows what they
You know
were
what I'm
doing.
saying? It
don't
just
know.
doesn't. But anyway, it's a continuous period
Yes.
in terms of the liturgy, not
Yes.
days, but in terms of the liturgy, it's a continuous.
What we're saying is what happened Holy Thursday was made manifest on the cross on Good Friday. And what happened on Good Friday comes to its conclusion on Easter Vigil night. So what happened Holy Thursday to the east, to the end, to the resurrection of Jesus is all one big event. It's not 3 events. It's one event that's saying the same story in 3 different ways.
Okay, in my notes to you, and this was personal opinion, I said that I always thought that Holy Thursday was the most moving day in our faith. The Easter Vigil is the most beautiful, it's the most vibrant, but Holy Thursday to me was always the day, the time that clearly defines what we believe. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, it's interesting you say that because Beatrice Boutreau, in her book called The Holy Thursday Revolution, and I've quoted her before in masses, and she has said to us that Holy Thursday is more important than Christmas and Easter, because that was whenever Jesus began to make that radical revolution of serve and not to be served, and the washing of feet and the Eucharist, of what all that is. And so she called it the Holy Thursday Revolution, which I may even call it again this week, which struck me deeply, that she said that. And I wrote about that.
So if this Mass of the Last Supper, which is what Thursday is, right?
Yeah.
It is unique. The most obvious difference is at the end, but during the Mass, there's the washing of feet. At the end, there's no closing hymn. The procession, you leave and you take the sacrament.
Blessed Sacrament, yeah.
The Blessed Sacrament, and in this church, do you end up at the
Tabernacle.
Tabernacle? Okay, I remember being at a church once. There was a separate chapel, and
When I was in New Baltimore, we went outside
Right.
to the chapel for the
Right.
monastery.
So then we strip the altar bare. Crosses are either removed or most of the time covered up. What's going on? Why are we doing? What's the symbol? Is it symbolism, or
Yes.
what does it
yes,
mean?
Yes. Now, as far as the washing of feet, what we're going to do, is we're all going to wash feet. So we have stations throughout the church, and we're all going to be washing feet. I'll be up front washing feet. And by the way, I think last year, Jerry, or the year before, you washed my feet, I think, if I recall
That was
correctly.
several years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, maybe, yeah. I remember you doing that. It just took me aback that he actually did that. But we'll have 5 other stations throughout the church. For about 10, 15 minutes, we all wash each other's feet. And I do it up there. And then, of course, we have the celebration of the Eucharist. And then the procession over to the tabernacle, and then the stripping of the altar simply means that now Jesus, the Passion has begun. The altar stripped. The church is dimmed. Now, we stay there till 11 o'clock, and we pray the Rosary of Our
Right.
Mother of Sorrows. We will do the we'll do the Office of Readings at 10 o'clock, and also too that night. What we're doing, folks, we're going to have, beginning Holy Thursday night, 6 different prayer stations around the church, praying for different things. For example, one that what absolutely touched my heart we're going to have in each one of these prayer places, you're going to have an action that you're going to do. And in these, and one of the stations is going to have a prayer for the hidden people that we kind of like push aside, the prostitutes, maybe transgender sometimes, the homeless, the people in the church oftentimes who are divorced or something that seem that they don't belong anymore. All these different people. And so if we know someone like that, we're going to take one of these little gems that we have there. We have a bowl that's all kind of lit up. We're going to put him in there. And that way we're going to light this bowl up with all these different people. And another one, we're going to have a cross, a big wooden cross on a table. And you're going to write down the different things that you want to take to that cross, that you want Jesus to heal or to touch in your life. And you're going to write that down and put it, just lay it right on the cross, not your name, just right on there. And so therefore these stations will be around there. So from 8 o'clock, 8:30 to 11 o'clock, people can come in, wander around with all that. And then the Panebiancos, I don't know if anybody has ever known Ignazio. If you have not ever known Ignazio Panebianco, you missed something. He was a great, great man, saintly man, absolutely saintly. And Panebianco means white bread. And
Every year,
yeah,
they
they bring
that.
bread. And so we're going to have people get bread, and they can eat the bread for Good Friday and everything. And so all these things are happening that evening during that 8:30 to 11 o'clock time. But basically what we're saying is happening at that moment is that the Passion has begun. Now, I want to mention one thing before I fail. Now, we're not allowed to have Mass Thursday morning or Friday morning or Saturday morning. So we have morning prayer from the Liturgy of the Hours, 8 o'clock, Thursday, Friday, Saturday morning, with the Liturgy of the Hours that morning too.
All right, we move on now to Good Friday. There is no Mass, as you just said. You have morning prayer. We do the reading of the Passion. Most churches, I know we're doing it, right?
Yes,
Friday
yeah.
afternoon.
Yeah.
So without there not being anything that we are used to associating with church, we're going for Mass, we're going for none of that happens. So why is it important to be there?
Well, because he died. The great event of our salvation is the death on a cross. The resurrection isn't the great event that saved us. It's the cross. And so the resurrection is the Father saying to the Son, what you did it, man. You didn't say it that way, but anyway, and just sort of raised him up.
Right.
The Father raised him up. And that's why it's important for us to have the corpus on the cross, because that death, that event on the cross is the redeeming act for all of us. So we have morning prayer. Then we have the Liturgy of the Lord's Passion,
Right.
which is
Liturgy is the word I think that throws people. It's not a Mass.
Yeah, it's not Mass. No.
it's-
As a matter of fact, here we have three things. We have the God. We read the Passion from the Gospel of John, which you'll notice is different from Matthew, which we read this year. And then we're going to venerate the cross.
I was going to get to all that, so don't get too ahead of
All
me.
right.
here.
Okay. But one thing I want to say is in the early church, they didn't have communion. We have communion. I think that's a little bit of a caving in, maybe a little bit. We shouldn't really have. If we didn't have communion, I think it'd be impactful if we didn't on that day.
All
But
right.
anyway, but veneration cross, I'll talk about that later.
You and I are 71, so we have a like history on here. I can remember my mother, my brother, sister, and I, at 12 o'clock on Good Friday, we weren't allowed from then till 3 o'clock. We weren't allowed to do anything. There was no radio, no TV, no playing, no talking. I can remember sitting on the couch going, God, is it 3 o'clock yet? Which,
We were
again,
that bad.
but I mean, it represents the 3 hours that Christ was on the cross.
Yeah.
I don't know that type of reverence exists anymore. I mean, it was
Oh.
drummed into. I'm talking about on a mass, on
Oh,
a-
no,
on a-
no.
It doesn't. There
The
were
secular
certain
world is-
houses,
yeah.
my mother still, when to the day she died, she wore something on her head when she went to church,
Yeah.
even though she didn't have to anymore.
Right.
My point is, we don't look at it as that type of. There are things to do that day.
I think Christians do, but I don't think the secular world does.
Do you think we all do that though? Do you think we take that time?
No, I think most Christians
what
are
kind
pretty
of-
swept away.
What will I don't want to call it an audience attendance on Friday be? Will it be a packed church?
Yes, it will be.
It's
It will
always
be.
been a packed
Yeah,
church
always
as
is.
long as you've been here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, let's talk about a little bit what we do there. Now, first of all, it's Mass.
No.
First of all, it's morning prayer. Then we have the Liturgy of the Lord's Passion. And then all throughout the day, we have the Stations of the Cross throughout the neighborhood. So people can come to the holy grounds, pick up a booklet, and it's a map, and you can walk the Stations of the Cross with the neighborhood. And then at 6 o'clock, we're going to have Stations of the Cross down at St. Michael's.
I know and you're going to talk about Good Friday
Whenever
night,
you-
and I'm gonna,
wait.
that's coming up.
Okay,
You-
okay,
there
wait.
you are. You're
I'll
jumping
wait.
ahead again
wait,
here.
I'll
You're
wait, I'll
ruining
wait.
the plan, Jerry.
I just to clarify something on Thursday. Can you move from station to station, or do you commit to one?
No, you move from station to station.
Okay.
Yes. You can move around from 8:30 to 11 o'clock. You can do whatever you want. Wander around.
All right. Why do we venerate the cross? Which interesting. Remember what happened during COVID? We didn't venerate the cross, right? We weren't. I don't think. Well, I don't know what you. I don't.
I
know
think
if I
we
was-
did. I think we did, but we may not have kissed it. But
Well, that's what I meant. But why do we venerate the cross? I mean, that is it. I get the symbolism. I understand what the cross represents for us.
yeah.
But it's the only time that we do what we do on
right.
Good Friday.
And we invite people to take their shoes off as they venerate the cross.
So why
too.
do we do that? What's the point?
Penitential, I think. One time, here's where I got the idea. One time, I was in Ireland. Anybody that's ever been to Ireland, you ever heard of St. Patrick's Purgatory? And it's an island in the middle of some lake in Ireland. And you go to this little island. I'm talking little. I'm talking, it's as big as, maybe you go as far as my rectory here and go and make a circle. That's how big it is. It's the middle of this lake. And it's all rock. And you go there barefoot. And you're there barefoot the whole day. And you do these different prayer things you can do. There's a chapel there and everything. You do everything barefoot. And it's on this, and it's the weather's awful. And so you do this thing. And so it's kind of a penitential thing to take your shoes off. A sign of humility, I think.
Mhm.
You know, and then you come up and people can venerate the cross any way they want to. Now, venerating the cross is important. I think that what we sing, this is the wood of the cross on which hung the Savior of the world.
Right.
Come, let us worship. Not the cross, but the Savior. This is the wood of the cross, which hung the Savior. That's why we venerate the cross.
I guess though, what I'm really getting, it is very moving. If you've ever been, through
It's
it,
absolutely. it is.
If there's something that would bring it in, I don't think there's anything that could bring into focus more than that does.
Yeah.
So why do we only do it once a year?
Well, that's the wow.
I mean, it's pretty powerful, right?
yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying we did it on a regular basis. You couldn't, but we could. Couldn't we do it more than once a year?
Well, I don't know. I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know.
I'm not asking you if you're going to do it more than once, but I'm just saying it is so powerful. It means so much, and we do it once, and we don't do it. I've often wondered why it's only done Good Friday afternoon, because let's be honest. I know you told people to clear their schedules and such. People do work. You know, they
I
do
understand.
everything they can.
I understand that.
People do everything they can to be there Holy Thursday. And
Yeah.
of course, they're going to be there either Saturday or Sunday. But Friday afternoon might be a challenge. And it's like, yeah, but you're missing one of the most important things we do. And that's why I just wondered if it's possible to
it's
do it
kind of,
again.
my former parish, St. John's, which some of the folks watching us might be from St. John's. Is your Good Friday still 7 o'clock in the evening? The reason why
Yeah,
we do it at
remember
1
that,
o'clock,
yeah.
the reason why we do it at 1 o'clock is because that's what the church says we should do, because it's the time of the Passion. That's when, and when we did it at 7 o'clock at St. John's, I thought that was kind of odd. A lot of folks came and stuff, but that's why it's 1 o'clock, because that's between 12 and 3. I think the church really recommends mostly 3 o'clock.
Right.
For that.
Right. All right. Well, this is a perfect segue
Yeah.
into my next question, which is, what can you tell us about what's going to happen here
All right.
Good Friday evening? Because that's brand new this year.
This will be brand, and this is the source of this was on first Friday of the month. We have our evening of worship and prayer. So we decided to sort of adapt all that evening. That some of you have come to that, you know what that's all about, and we have a certain amount of. We're going to sing some praise and worship songs. And they're beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Our band is awesome. They're you'll sing about 3 or 4 songs. And then we're going to move into a little meditation called I Thirst. And we're going to slowly read this. It'll take about 10 minutes, this little meditation. And then we're going to pray for each other a little bit. And then after we pray for each other a little bit, we'll have time for individual prayer if people want to do that. And then we're going to allow you, because the prayer stations will be up, we're going to let people just wander around the church a little bit again. and get prayer if you want to, wander around at different prayer stations if you want to. Just sit and listen to some more music that evening. And the evening is simply called an evening of healing at the foot of the cross. So it's all going to be a theme about it. It lasts about an hour or so. An hour.
And the hope is that this is going to become a yearly event.
Well, we'll see how it goes this time around.
Yeah, because it is brand new.
Yeah.
We've never done.
The only reason we're doing it is because it's the first Friday of the month. That's why we dreamed it up.
Oh, so it won't necessarily be on Good Fridays to come.
It might be. But we'll wait
because
and
it
see
won't
what
be the first Friday of the month every year.
I
Is
know,
what I'm
I know.
saying. Right.
And Westmont Presbyterian is changing their venue.
Right. Because
to
you participated in that Tenebrae
Yeah.
service.
and I think they're changing their venue.
They are,
So
they
that
are.
yeah, that helped us to make sure to do this.
So it's kind of going to be a little bit of an experiment because
Yes.
you really don't know how
Yeah.
that's going to go over.
We're all
How we-
working. There's about 5 or 6 folks working on this
Okay.
thing, pulling it together.
All right, then we move to Holy Saturday, the Easter Vigil, which is often called the most beautiful liturgy of the church, period. So here's your chance. I mean, it's like give us the entire significance of because there's so much going on, but it really is significant. It is the one day of the year, right? Is it the top of the charts? Do you
Yeah.
think?
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Saint Augustine, 4th century, called it the mother of all vigils. You know, the most important event in life of the church. So you have the liturgy of the fire, which is the beginning.
Okay,
of that.
don't go through that because I'm going to do the symbolism. I'm talking about let's just do it overall. Why the vigil is so important and why people, except for the people who say, "Well, good Lord, the last 3 hours, we're in there forever."
Or maybe more closer to 2.
I
think,
know,
would be that,
but you know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah.
It's like, why are we there all that time?
And when
But I mean-
when the liturgy begins, all time stops because we're in heaven and we are in heaven.
That's what I wanted you.
Yeah,
So that's what it. I mean, this is more than just a service.
Yeah, this
This
is
represent. All right, we might as well go to the symbolism: darkness, fire, light.
right.
And you then take us through that, like why we do what we do.
Well, okay. Now, first of all, we do it in the evening of the day before.
And you have to
because-
do it after sundown. Is that
absolutely after sundown. Yes.
And what is that? Is that
Now, some traditions, the Neo-Catechumen for one, and I bet in the ancient church they did it all night long. It would just go.
But I mean,
on.
this is a church mandated. Like, is it canon or just that
the
someone?
bishop usually is the one who determines, but I don't know a bishop that doesn't say it has to happen at sundown.
Right.
Here's why we have to have sundown, because when does the Jews have Shabbat? Shabbat they
Okay,
have a
okay.
Friday evening at sundown before the Sabbath. So we follow the Jewish understanding that the day begins at sundown of the previous day.
Right.
That's why we are able to go to Mass on Saturday evenings. Now, we break that rule. We should be going to Mass a lot later than 4 o'clock. We should be going like 7 or 8 o'clock. Matter of fact, my first time I was at St. John's in New Baltimore, I think Sunday Mass or the Saturday evening Mass was at 7 o'clock. But so the day begins at sundown the night before. So the Easter Vigil is really starting Sunday. That's Sunday. 8 o'clock that Saturday, Sunday begins. Then we have the liturgy of light, where we bless the fire. Then we light our Easter candle.
Right.
Christ has risen. This is the moment when we make sense of the passion or the resurrection of Jesus Christ.
So, and Jerry, I'm going to get to you in just unless do you need to jump in now
No,
before
no.
we
Well,
get.
this is a real easy thing, and it's just before the vigil. The question: Does your church do blessing of Easter baskets?
Yes,
Holy
yes.
Saturday? Yeah.
Noon on
Noon,
Holy
okay,
Saturday.
okay.
Yes.
Yeah, and that was another one in my
Is
childhood.
that what
That was
it
a
is?
big
Yes,
deal.
but
Like,
I never heard of it before. I did it at St. John's some in Altoona. I don't think I ever did it in New Baltimore
well,
much.
my father was Eastern European. He's Croatian.
That's where it comes
so-
from. That's where
So
it comes from.
we had kielbasa, we had eggs had to be in there. My mother would bake the bread. We had homemade horseradish.
Oh, yeah,
All of that
yeah,
went in the
yeah,
basket and went to be blessed. 2 o'clock Saturday afternoon. And I don't know if to be honest with you, when I was a child, there wasn't a vigil, so we didn't. That's
No, there
what we
was
did.
not a vigil.
We did not. All right. So this darkness, fire, light. You start outside the church,
Yes. Well, yeah.
weather permitting. We hope we're outside the church.
Yeah, we're outside church.
Why
So-
and what is that all about?
Well, I think because
What
of
is
the
that
fire.
fire?
The
What
fire.
and the fire that gets bigger every year.
Yes, and represents the resurrection of Jesus.
So,
So how can it be a little fire if it's resurrection of Jesus? A little
well,
fire.
it doesn't have to be
Big
a
fire.
little fire, but we don't want to burn down the neighborhood either.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
but my point is that we have this fire on Saturday night. We try to get, I don't know if we always get everybody that's in the,
Pretty much, yeah.
we try those.
Yeah.
I mean, some people decide they don't want to come back, which
Yeah.
whatever. And then we have the candles, right?
Yep. And Steve's going to be out there with something to record what's going to happen. Okay.
The year,
Oh,
the,
oh,
fir-
oh, there you go.
the first Easter of COVID, we did the fire in the back of the church.
Oh, I mean, that's the
Inside.
one I was burned
That
down
was
the
nuts.
church.
Oh, I remember
That's
that.
right,
I
those
remember
times,
that. That was a
yeah.
pretty scary moment because
Yeah.
that fire got a little
Yeah.
out of
We
not out
have
of
it all on
control.
film to prove.
All right,
it, yeah.
so now we're talking about we're lighting the Paschal candle. And the church is dark. I'm trying to get you to explain to me why we do all of that. I mean, the symbolism.
Well-
okay, it's dark. We light the fire. We walk up. We sing. We do all this stuff. But it
It's-
means a lot more. Than
It's
that.
dark. It's dark. And so we're coming in the church with an Easter candle leads the way. Christ leads the way. Then comes all of us, all the baptized. If you're not baptized, you don't get a candle. All the baptized come with their candles. And all of a sudden the church gets lighter and lighter and lighter. And then it's going to be Keith Cookenbrod this year. It sings the Exultet. The Exultet is this great ancient hymn of light, darkness into light, the great hymn of resurrection. He sings it a cappella. It's not easy to sing.
Oh no, it's very difficult.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
wondered how you convinced him to do it. Or
He
did-
volunteered.
Oh, okay.
You
'cause
know
I thought
what?
it was another one.
Everybody, and Dan volunteered before. Everybody, and everybody wants to do it in some level. But then after that, we begin the liturgy of the Word, which it becomes salvation history. Our first reading today is the creation of the world. Second reading is going to be Moses freeing the Jews from slavery in Egypt. No. Yeah, that's it. Then the third reading is going to be a reading from Ezekiel about bringing taking our hearts and making them into human, our hard hearts, making them into human hearts. Then comes the Gloria. Then comes the Epistle. Then comes the Gospel, and so that's the liturgy of the Word. Then the rest of the liturgy on the Easter Vigil is the sacraments of initiation, the sacraments of all of us: baptism, confirmation, Eucharist. We're baptizing 2 people this year. Then after we baptize them, we all renew our baptism promises.
Which is, again, you're jumping ahead. I
Yeah.
mean, you got my notes here.
Yeah.
You're cheating. You're going ahead of me. But why do we renew our baptism?
That's the heart of who we are. That's
But why do we do it then?
Because the resurrection is completely, utterly tied to our baptism. This new life we receive at baptism is resurrection life.
Now, the welcoming in new members, whether they're being confirmed or baptized or
We
whatever,
have 4.
that's relatively new in the
Vatican
history.
II.
Okay, is it since
Well,
that?
it's actually quite ancient,
But
but then
we
again,
didn't do
we
it.
screwed it all up.
Right.
Whatever, people keep talking. This is going to sound terrible. We go back to this. We keep on going back to this Trinity Mass, folks. The Trinity Mass was the furthest thing from what the early church was doing as far as the liturgy was concerned that you can possibly get. As a matter of fact, it's quite modern in that version. But what the Second Vatican Council did, and Ratzinger was part of all this, was take the liturgy back to its roots again, restoring the Holy 3 Days, restoring the liturgy of the Word to what it was, so people can hear the liturgy of the Word, restoring the Eucharist to what it was. And people walking up the aisle and going to communion in the hand is ancient. Receiving on the tongue is relatively new. They didn't do that. They walked up, they bowed. What we do is what the ancient church did. Whenever St. Augustine would come back to celebrate the liturgy today, he wouldn't recognize the Latin Mass. He'd recognize this one that we do.
It's a
Sorry for the vent.
No, I'm glad you said that.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
a
Better
bit of
you than me.
It's a bit unnerving for the new members because there they are. They're on display, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of and I mean, how long is the RCIA process?
Well, it can be long. Well, it's a few months.
Yeah, so they've been doing a lot of work.
Yeah.
And do you find in the years you've been doing this, they get the significance of what's happening that night?
Probably not in any deep level, but we're hoping if they stay amongst us, they'll get it eventually. Who does? I don't get it. I've been doing it for 40 years. I still don't get it. Actually, going to the Easter Vigil at Assumption Church in Pittsburgh, I stumbled onto it. And whenever I was in my conversion days, my early 20s, I decided to go to church. I stumbled on the Easter Vigil. I said, what in the heck is this? And all of it, I said, man, this is pretty cool. Whatever the heck they're doing up there. So I didn't get the first time through either. So
Do you think that we as a congregation participate through not just, but through the 3 days? Do we participate at the level you'd like to see us participate?
I think St. John's, we did pretty good, you guys who were there. I think we're gaining on it. Absolutely. I
So
am
what would make
ecstatic.
it to that level? What would you like to see?
I'm fine with what we're doing.
Well, no, I'm not asking you to be critical, but it's like, here's something to think about. If you're
Well, how did I ask? Let me ask you that. What would you think?
what did I think? What?
What would be the level you would see it as?
Oh, you mean the in total, the three?
Yeah.
Oh, it's different here than any other church I've ever been to.
But what would you see as this is what it should look like?
Oh, I think what it looks like is what it should look like. I mean, it's obviously they are all different. You know, Holy Thursday is different, Good Friday is different. The vigil is like, I tell people all the time, I said, listen, if you're not going to church, I'm not trying to say it's okay to just go once a year, but if you're not going, that's the one you should go to. Forget about Christmas. Forgive me, but forget about all the rest. That's the one, because that's
the
one.
heart of what we are.
There it is. There's more symbolism, more understanding, more, you recognize a lot more that it's not, because young Catholic, we're taught to memorize prayers, and do all that. Oh man, the Easter Vigil is just.
And by the way, we're making all of this present. We're not just celebrating something that happened in the past. We are making it present here. Anamnesis, the great word.
I can't imagine that if somebody comes next Saturday night, that's never been there, that they're not going to be moved by what happened. I don't know how you couldn't be.
I just want to get prepared as best I can.
Well, it's tough for you. It's tough for you. You're a little busy this week. You got a lot going on, but sacramentally, and you talk about it all the time. The Holy 3 days, the Holy 3 days, and I mean, because it's very, very, very important to you.
Yeah.
And I wonder, do you think you reached the bar for yourself?
I never reached the bar for myself. I have never reached the bar. I have a hard time setting goals in my life because I never reach them.
Well, I mean, you know what I'm talking about as a minister, as someone who is bringing your faithful to this, I don't want to call it an event, but to the realization of what's happening.
Can I sit back on Monday morning and say that was pretty good? Pretty good. I could say it's pretty good.
But it's never been wow.
Oh, it's been a while. Yeah.
But
As a matter of fact, a top five, I say to people, one of the top 5 things is the retreat during Alpha is one of the top 5 things in my life. Maybe the top of that list is the Easter Vigil.
I could see that. All right, let's move to the final day, the Easter Sunday, which I don't know, it's kind of anticlimactic, the way we've changed
In
things.
some sense.
It is, because it's like, well, everything's over with. Now you just couldn't make it to church. Again, people would say to me, I'm not going to that 3-hour mass. I'll go to the hour mass. I'd say, okay, whatever. That's what your thing is. But you come to Easter Sunday, the day of the resurrection, the most important, that's the event that really defines us. Okay.
And we renew our baptism promises there too.
But we talk a little bit about this, but what do you think really the followers of Jesus were going through on Easter Sunday morning? They had to have been like depressed beyond belief, right?
Oh, in the morning, yes. Can't imagine.
the road to Emmaus and all that story, and they're like
completely, totally crestfallen at that point. I think Saturday must have been the most awful day of their lives because they thought they were next.
And there had to have been a, man, how did we get duped by this guy?
I agree. How did we get? I think that is typified by the Emmaus story. I think that's what they were pretty much saying. How did we ever get duped by this guy? Yeah, we thought he was going to be the one who's going to restore Israel, and he gets crucified by the Romans like this. How'd that happen?
Okay, why should we believe that the resurrection? And I think Bishop Barron probably has done the best. But anyway, why do we believe it factually happened?
All right. Now, I actually looked it up a little bit.
Okay. I figured you would.
So, first of all, why should we believe the resurrection? First of all, the absence of the tomb. Now, there are many different reasons that people say Jesus was absent from the tomb. Number one theory, he never really died on the cross. Got beat up pretty bad.
Right.
Went into the tomb and walked out. Theory number one. Theory number two, the disciples stole him. But as everybody goes, why would they steal him in some fashion and never and nothing else ever happened? By the way, they were so overriddled with fear and that they were next. I can't imagine them somehow working out some kind of a deal where they actually the disciples stole Jesus.
Why would you? You wouldn't want to be anywhere around that because of all the attention that would
Time
be
to get out
paid
of
on
town.
that.
Well, and there's
too, right?
Roman guards there.
Exactly. They were exactly. Now
Well, even if they were sleeping.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
if they slept, they would be dead.
they'd be
If the-
exactly.
If
They'd
the
be dead.
Roman guards slept and they got caught on their watch, they would be dead.
Third theory: the authorities stole him. But why would they? And if they would have stolen him, why didn't they produce him later?
Right.
So the absence of the tomb, number one. Number two, his appearances. He appeared to, at one point, over 500 people at one time. Now, some people say maybe he just appeared to those who would say he appeared to them. That's a lot of people still. That nobody broke ranks. I really believe, like with the Emmaus story, he appeared to other people. They just didn't recognize him. But he did appear to other people. So there's the appearances of
Well,
Jesus.
sure, because the last time they saw him, he wouldn't have looked like we believe he looked after the resurrection.
Yeah, yeah.
He was a mess.
Yeah. So there's a period, and no, but not 500 people don't hallucinate all at
It
the
would
same
be hard
time.
to think that could happen. I agree with you.
Then comes the immediate effects. The disciples all of a sudden break out from these timid, fearful people. All of a sudden, they take on Rome, and they start taking on Jerusalem, and they start taking on authority. There's a bunch of dumb fishermen. So they're starting to take on the world. And then number 4 reason why is the Christian experience. Many people from that time on have had an experience that has absolutely changed their lives. And my reading of this Christian experience, they're all remarkably similar. Remarkably similar. I have never talked to a Christian who had an experience of being transformed, converted by Jesus in some fashion. I didn't know in my head said, yeah, I get that. Never had one. So that's why we believe the resurrection.
Okay, we'll end with this because in some of the research, as I was reading about the significance of the resurrection, the author of one of the things that I read asked the reader to ask this question. And I've thought about this a lot, and I said, this is really good. He said, to whom did the risen Jesus appear? Or to put the question another way, to whom might we expect him to appear? We're told that he appeared to, you said, over 500 people. Would we have expected him, or should we expect him? If we were there, would he, because he obviously couldn't appear to every believer. There were more than that. So whom should we expect?
I'll tell you one that you would expect him to appear to, which there's no evidence that he did, was his mother.
Right. She doesn't get mentioned at all. And why
Not
wouldn't he have
mentioned
gone?
one
I mean,
time.
like you said, there's a gospel that says she was at the foot of the cross. Other gospels said she wasn't there. And I always wondered, well, where was she? Was she in fear? Did she leave? Did the other disciples say, oh, man, we got to put you away because this could get out of hand? But why didn't he go to her?
Ignatius of Loyola in his 30-day retreat says he did, but I would argue that he really didn't appear to her because here was the consummate woman of faith. She didn't need it. She didn't need it.
You don't think he would have wanted to go and just say, I know you believe, but I just want you to, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. Because we think of him as, yeah, Jerry.
I think the thing that I always end with is the very last line of the very last gospel. Jesus did so many things that are not recorded in
his
this
book.
Yep.
I suppose the books of the world could not contain them.
Yes.
All right, we're out of time. Tell us about what's going to happen next week, no, not next week. Next week's Easter. We know what's going to happen after you've been there.
We won't be here. And so
following
the week after that,
which is
you're
this-
going.
I'm going to where it's a little warmer to play some golf. But so what's going to happen on
My
the
niece-
16th?
Yes, my niece will be here, a law professor from Penn State University who is a non-practicing Catholic and calls herself agnostic. And she agreed to come on with me. And the title of the evening will be The Musings of a Non-Practicing Catholic.
Is this like crossfire, point, counterpoint? One of you is going to be.
I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah, I mean, because that could be. I'm kind of I'm going to have to make sure it's recorded because that could
Yeah.
be fun to watch.
Yeah.
I
And,
think
as
I'm
far-
going to be real busy.
and you know what? I'm not the firing line, so
I don't know. I don't want to be real hard on her, but I said you could be as hard on me as you want to. I said you could jump at me all you want to, and so I'll go back and forth with her with all that. And she's smart. A lot. She has a degree in law. She's a lawyer, and also has a degree in library science. And so she teaches how lawyers are to reference all the different stuff they reference.
boy, that
Give
could
me
be
a headache, you know what I mean?
Man,
So she's a reader and she's a ponderer, and so it ought to be interesting. It's Russ's daughter. So many of you know my brother Russ. It's his
Our
daughter.
sister Russ or brother Russ or
Yeah,
sister
yeah,
Susie
yeah,
or brother
so-
Susie.
so-
I get
so-
that confused all the time. All right, as we close, you want to see us all Thursday.
Yes, that'd be great to see you Thursday and Friday. And it's Easter Vigil and Easter Sunday. And listen, I won't see you next week, some of you. So happy ahead of time Easter. Happy Holy Thursday. Happy Good Friday. Happy Easter. And God bless you. Thank you for joining us all this time and looking forward to seeing you on the 16th.
Don't miss that one. Thanks, Father.
Thank you.